Please welcome Nini and Diane.
Hi. Can you, is this on? Good. Okay. Turning around an email program is sort of. So is this going to have the presenter part on it so I can see my notes? Yeah. And also, if I don't see my notes, you guys are going to get a really weird winged speech. But we'll just, I guess we'll wing it. Yeah. So these are two of my favorite things, my child and my dog, just so you know a little bit about me. I have been in email for a really, really long time, since like the dawn of man. So being here has made me kind of want to go back to email because, believe it or not, Harvard Business Review, despite the brand and the name, we were really not very good at email. So I inherited kind of a messy program, and this is me thinking about the email program. It was put in by a person who was a data person who didn't know anything about email marketing really at all. She was great at data, and she just sort of stacked everything in a way that made no sense. And we had the first thing, but you can't come in and just like say like, no, we have to rip it all apart. And at the time, email didn't actually report into me. It reported into the data team, which made no sense. So I was like, all right, I'm just going to start small. We're just going to do this tiny little thing. We're going to try and design. That's the big ball of yarn. That's our email program still. So I was like, we're just going to try to design something new. So that was what it looked like, that big blue box. It was just like everybody gets the same thing. There is no differentiation. There is no segmentation. Nobody knows what they are getting. Let's just hope that they buy a subscription. A really, really expensive subscription, by the way. We're just going to give them some ideas. And so we made a couple of changes. And the first was to actually do a tiny bit of segmentation and take a look at all of the people who are in it and who was converting the most and how were we speaking to them, because we weren't giving them any differentiation in messaging. So we used a lot of lifestyle imagery in our social media, and that's people at Harvard were very academic, right? So I was like, there are actual real people who read the magazine, who interact with it, who don't actually look at the magazine. They may have the magazine, they may be looking at it at a computer, they may be looking at it on a smartphone. Let's try that. Worked. And then the one furthest over, we had a lot of expires, and we didn't know anything about how quickly they might re-engage with the brand. And so I was like, well, can we try and talk to them too and see how that works out? It worked out. So then, that was just little tiny steps. The next thing was convince the data person, she was the consumer data analyst, that we don't need another analyst. We actually need somebody who can properly manage an email program. So that gave me an opportunity to take somebody else from America's Test Kitchen and bring her over, somebody I knew would be able to turn the email program around with me. And the first thing she did, which is going to sound really stupid to all of you, because you're like, duh, of course that's what we should do. She's just like, why aren't we sending follow-up emails when we only send one promotion a week, just one. She said, are we following up with anybody who engaged with that email on the weekend just to remind them that they opened and clicked? No, we weren't doing that. So we did that, and of course it increased things by 10%. So everything is just like a little tiny baby step. So my colleague Josh is right here. He was one of the next things I did, was like bring him back into the organization so that I had my dream team. And then the finance director is always like, Nini, what levers can you pull? Because it's not about really how well you run your marketing program. It's how are you going to increase your revenue by 5% and increase your circulation by 5%. So we have this little joke on my team that I'm the man behind the curtain. Pay no attention. It's like, what can you do? What can you do? I'm like, there's no smoking gun. There's no silver bullet. There's nothing that is going to make this email program turn around. It's just going to be all the little tiny things. So it's the subscriber onboarding, it's the registration, it's the trigger messages, it's the connection with the expired subscribers, it's testing the expired subscribers. Is it 30 days? Is it 60 days? Is it 6 months after you talk to them? Josh installed an amazing follow-up program so that people are coming back within 30 days, we finally learned. It's the really super unsexy failed payment follow-up. 4 touches, that's all it is. And all of this in a year increased things by 78%, our conversions over in email. That's just with a fully broken system, and it is still broken. So it's like, what are we gonna do next? Well, you saw the ball of yarn. That still exists. Everything we've done has been a complete workaround, and it is totally manual, and all of you vendors are like clamoring, let's get to it right away. You're gonna have to talk to Ryan Phelan and Chris Marriott if you wanna talk to me at all. They're my they're my gatekeepers. So we now that email finally actually does report up into me, we do have an opportunity, and I have an amazing team that is just chomping at the bit to improve. They want to test, they want to learn. Josh does as much as he can. Josh, just stand up and say hi to everybody. He's awesome. He's testing all the time, like totally under the radar, tiny little things like the call to action, the color of the button, the subject line, all this stuff that we're just trying to get things done. So this is Josh's beautiful dream. That's what a customer journey is supposed to look like, right? They're supposed to come in. They're supposed to get an onboarding series. We're supposed to do some progressive profiling. We're going to see if they meet an engagement threshold. We're going to give them an acquisition cycle, or we're not, depending on what they're telling us about themselves. Believe it or not, Harvard cannot do this. So, I know, right? The best, the best in management principles. So we're trying to take it into action. We're trying to look at the problem. We're trying to be efficient. We're trying to make a plan. All of these things, we're trying to practice what we preach, which I know it's really hard to believe that we don't do that, but we don't. And then we get from the business insight director, it's so easy. You could just do this. It's so easy. That's her favorite thing to say to me. It's so easy. Okay. You do this for 15 years and tell me how easy it is. So this is my team on their trek to email nirvana. That is literally how far we have to go. And we have a year to do it. So we're in the end run of a contract. We have a year to turn this ship around. We'll see how it goes. All of you just come on up and tell me how I can do it. And so I talked really, really fast. It took 10 minutes. And I'm done because I didn't have my notes. And I had to wing it. But I'll take questions if we have time.
Yeah. Hang on. He's got
You remind me of Christopher Chester. Do you know? That's a good thing. That's a compliment.
Well, then, thank you. What's the reason that you just have a year left to go?
Because I am adamant that I want to get out of the contract that we're in. So I was not the arbiter of the contract. I don't own the contract with Adobe. Adobe is not here, so I can say that out loud. So that's the time limit I've given myself. And in fact, we had an epic fail in March, and it was really sort of a manual thing. It was like the wrong suppression list got attached, and 4 million people got the wrong email. Right? That's a lot of people. But 5 people complained, right? So our security team had a conniption. And I was like, dudes, this happens all the time. And so it feels punitive now. I mean, talk about not feeling supportive. I support our team. It's a mistake. It happens all the time. And they're like, we have to send an apology. I'm like, no, we do not. And they made us do it. It made it worse. And so now they're like, we need a new ESP. I'm like, yes, we do. So that's why it's a year. The contract is up. The agency that helped us install it, they're like, go to AJO, let's do that. I'm like, yeah, okay, we'll see. You can be part of the pool, but it's not. I like time limits because otherwise I don't get anything done.
Nini, where does email fit within the larger sales channel, among the other sales channels for HBR memberships? How responsible are you for ultimately for the sales of the subscriptions?
Completely responsible. No, Josh is the one that's actually responsible for everything. So
But I mean, are there other inputs? Are there other channels that are driving
I mean,
subscriptions?
We are a completely digital shop, but if you add it all up in a month's time, so we probably attribute, I'm just going to make up numbers, but 3,000 conversions in a month maybe come from Google, from our search, from stuff like that. And then we have other digital channels that are in the mix. We have display advertising, things like that. But each email program that includes our triggers, that includes the follow-up programs that Josh pulls together, that includes the one campaign a week, they're probably like in the top 5 of the contributors. So email is still really the heart and soul. And I'm not even talking about our newsletter program. We have 17 newsletters. I'm not talking about our e-commerce program, which is gigantic and is what caused the mistake. So it's like a huge part, and it's like I still feel like email is the heart and soul of this kind of marketing effort, but we have a lot of internal education still left to do to make people realize that. People think email is easy. Oh, we all know this. They're like, oh, let's just send out an email. Let's attach a PDF to it. Like, oh, okay.
Right.
That'll work.
Yeah. I think the thing that resonates for me from this whole event was who started by us on day one by said everybody thinks that they're an expert at emael because they get it in their inbox.
There was someone who said their finance team likes to bring them ideas. I think it was the auto parts. I'm like, yeah, okay. What levers can you pull?
Hey, Nini.
Hi.
I know you mentioned all the little things, and we all know the little things really add up, but was there one particular item that you knocked off on the list or strategy you implemented that you felt like really moved the needle more than the others?
Yeah, it was definitely the Expire and the pay-fail programs. Those were just, and part of it was because of the transparency of that. So circulation business magazines are really, really old-fashioned, and we had a very old-fashioned way of getting people back in if their payment failed and they weren't paying their bills. It was all paper, all manual. It was kind of ridiculous. And we needed to replace that, and so Josh implemented the pay-fail, and with sort of a different message each time. It's pretty basic, and it literally changed things so significantly. It's all that little unsexy stuff. Karen has a question.
I can try to yell loud. So as you had all of these little successes, right, and you had that 78% lift, and the business is now seeing that, has that kind of paved your way for them to allow you to have the runway to be able to do more, to push the envelope, or do you still have to sell it in each time you want to try something new?
It's a little bit of both. I think, I've been at HBR for 3 years, and I had a learning curve, but now I feel like I am definitely getting some traction. Part of it is because I'm a little bit of a bully. And I, not really, but I really ask for a lot just to see what I can get. So I'm asking for more resources. I'm saying, can I have just a little bit more money because we need to test this? And we happen to be going into our budgeting season right now. And as soon as I get back from this conference, I'm like, I need this. These are all the things that I am going to need. Because we're a smaller organization, it's a little bit easier to do that, I think. But the team has really proven how fantastic they are. I mean, when we were all home from COVID, we blew out the budget. And that happened in our industry a lot. It was really hard for a lot of people, but we beat our budget by like 11%. It was gigantic. So thankfully, but there is still, I don't know, there are still those little voices. Those people are like, really? Is that really what's going to work? So you do have to work really hard. I mean, wouldn't you say, Josh? We have the hardest jobs. We have to work really hard, and the editorial team gets away with everything.
Don't worry, they're not here.
No, I love them so much.
Nini, thank you for ending us on a hope.